We opened the doors in August of 2006. Best I can tell, it was built in the early 40s, somewhere around then, and you know, when the started to get some money after the Depression. We obviously did all the remodeling. This was a area they used for feeding cattle right here where we're standing, and of course it was a tobacco barn, so they had the drying the tobacco upstairs and then the stripping room downstairs, and the stripping room is basically underground, so that's where the barrels are. The first vintage was 2005, and of course it takes a little while to make. It takes about 6 months to make a white wine. And right now we got about 18 on the shelf, and we're looking at 3 or 4 more that we really like. We're looking at some sparkling wines and some apple wines. In here we have somewhere around 50 barrels. And they're all handmade as they're put together, so they're all a little bit different in size. You got to know that if you are pumping from one to the other, you don't want to pick one that's 67 gallons and pump it into a 65-gallon one without keeping an eye on things. They're all white oak barrels, and that's always the case for wine. They are cooked inside, toasted basically, to give it a little charcoal, smoky, vanilla kind of flavor that comes out of the wood. And the barrels, basically for us, they are a flavoring agent. So you put the red wines in there, mostly red wines, you put them in there, and it gives it kind of a mouthfeel and a smoky vanilla flavor that takes between 8 and 18 months to develop. When we first opened, we assumed that each one of these tanks would do an acre's worth of grapes. It's the most roughest of estimates, but that's how we came up with the 5 tanks, or actually 7 tanks. And of course you learn things the hard way, and if you fill up 7 tanks, you have no place to move stuff from one tank to another because you can't put 500 gallons in a 200-gallon tank. They have cooling jackets in them. Actually, the wine, the yeast will build up heat. It's an exothermic process when you turn the sugar into alcohol. So you have to put these cooling jackets in there, or else that tank will get so hot it kills the yeast, and then you have a lot of sugar and a lot of dead yeast and not enough alcohol. Most of what we do is in the stainless steel tanks. Even the reds we put in the stainless steel tanks, and then once they are fermented and cleaned up a little bit, then we'll put them in the oak barrels and let them basically just flavor. Most of this is the original tobacco barn, so when you're looking at this lumber here and this other stuff here, we put a insulation and a steel skin on the outside of it so we could see what was on the inside. A lot of local artists on display up here. When we first opened up, my aunt is part of the Calvert Art Guild. She had a bunch of artists come in and they all hung stuff up here. Yeah, the original rafters up to the top there. There was some fire damage, so that's why you're looking at new siding on this, in this area, and that was just because of the fire damage. It was all, you know, charcoaled up. We planted the vineyard in 2008. As those grapes come in and they start producing more, we can buy less from out of state. That's really where we're going, is to probably grow 80 or 90% of what we sell here.